Settle down, brother. This is the Quarter Report, powered by enca.com. South Africa is a movie. Welcome to the watch party. Well, members of parliament went to prison today. In fact, they went to one of the most fearsome and renowned ones, Kgosi Mampuru Prison, to meet with Matlala, the man accused of being one of the big five drug cartel, the man accused of trying to get his ex-girlfriend Tebogo Tobejane assassinated, the man accused of being involved in a variety of dodgy and allegedly criminal tenders, including Tembisa Hospital and the SAPS healthcare contract worth over 350 million rand. They went to the prison to speak to Matlala. And let me tell you, the effort was worth it because Matlala delivered. In full Burberry, I might add. Burberry shoes, Burberry pants, Burberry shirt with Burberry cufflinks, and chains around his ankles and waist over the Burberry. You know, we always say South Africa is a movie. This is something else. This is something so much further than that. And I'm going to try in this episode to first get you through all of the stuff that you need to know from an absolutely bombshell day of Matlala basically throwing everybody, not just under the bus, but the whole bus company. There are broadly 5 strands of stories that we're going to try and talk about. And this is all according to Matlala's version of events. Remember, 1, Cele apparently lied under oath when Cele told the Ad Hoc committee in parliament that he only kept Matlala around to get information from him. The second one is that Matlala paints himself as the victim of rivaling extortion attempts from different factions within SAPS. He says on the one hand, now suspended police minister Senzo Mchunu and his faction with Brown Mogotsi were extorting Matlala because they knew he had money because he'd won these big tenders. And on the other hand, Cele and his faction saying, we can help you get out of the sticky stuff from the police that Mchunu's faction can do to you if you also pay us off and give us favors. Thirdly, Matlala claims that Cele told him that Matlala was stuck in a Zulu war, caught in a Zulu war between basically Senzo Mchunu and General Mkhwanazi, amongst others like Dumisani Khumalo, fighting over the South African police force. Fourthly, Matlala gave more details on how he says he met Sibiya. And let me tell you, it's real weird, him and Shadrach Sibiya. And fifthly, you may have forgotten this in all of the wash, but there have been allegations about who the alleged kingpin of the big five drug cartel is or was. Old man Msibi, a taxi boss who passed away quite recently. The only place to watch the full show, enca.com. The link is in the description if you're watching on YouTube. Give us a like and a subscribe if you're watching on YouTube. Get merchandise, 3beaniesnetworks.com is also the link to support. And best way to contact us is on the WhatsApp line, or the YouTube comments are also good. Number is 0607613436. And go follow our WhatsApp channel. You can search 3 Beanies Network with Dan Corder. I'm now going to breathe for the first time in 5 minutes. Now, firstly, Cele, key member, still I think an NEC member of the African National Congress. Unbelievably powerful, close to so many powerful people. Cele has been connected with Matlala. Remember, he said he didn't really know the guy, but he stayed with him in his penthouse, or stayed at his penthouse apartment in Pretoria. And then he kind of met the guy, but he didn't. And then Cele went before the Ad Hoc committee and said, well, I was keeping Matlala close to me because he had information that I deemed to be useful that I could use later to expose criminal networks and all this. And everybody was hyper charmed by Cele with his testimony, because he was kind of like that big yapper, like uncle granddad who gets to the Christmas and basically takes center stage because he has a year of storytelling to do about all kinds of things. People were saying that Cele would be a great hang at a bar or in a shebeen. And I think that's objectively true, but I think a lot of people fell under Cele's spell from that testimony. And I'm not saying Matlala is now telling the truth. We need to wait and see. But I have to tell you that quite a lot of what Matlala said, not all of it, but quite a lot of it, matches up with other moments from Madlanga and the Ad Hoc committee that have passed. And so, I'm going to try and connect all those things for you. Julius Malema really nailed down on this, saying, do you believe, or are you claiming that Cele lied under oath? He asked that to Matlala, and Matlala said, yes. Cele had told us, the country, that he was keeping Matlala nearby to get information from him. Matlala said, no ways. That's absolutely not what happened. And he said a bunch of things. So he said, firstly, he was getting information and directions from Cele. And he went into some of the information that he got from Cele that I'll get to in a second. Secondly, he said that he explicitly gave Cele gifts, cash, financial gifts, 2 of them, one 200K, one 300K. He said that he organized for travel for Bheki Cele's wife to a wedding. I think he said it was in Lanseria. I'm always amazed to hear that there's something besides an airport at Lanseria, because I really do always think of Lanseria as basically an airport and nothing else. But he said that that happened. And so what Matlala is claiming is that Bheki Cele misled and lied to Parliament and the whole country. What kind of information did Matlala say that Bheki Cele told him? Well, Matlala said that Bheki Cele told him, Matlala, that Matlala was caught in the middle of a Zulu war, meaning between, and they are all Zulu. Senzo Mchunu used to be the premier of KwaZulu-Natal for the African National Congress. Again, close ally of Ramaphosa. Again, one of the reasons why Ramaphosa won the succession battle against Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma was because of Senzo Mchunu. So Senzo Mchunu, police minister, currently on suspension. Bheki Cele seemed to quite explicitly say, according to Matlala, if you assume that he's telling the truth, and we should not assume that, but assume he was telling the truth, that there was a war between Mchunu and between other Zulu people. And what he meant by that was Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi and other people in Mkhwanazi's orbit, including head of crime intelligence, Dumisani Khumalo. And this tracks, by the way, because all the way back to the earliest days of Madlanga and even before that, there was talk and rumor going around that there was a wrestling match between Senzo Mchunu and Mkhwanazi and others who were not happy with Senzo Mchunu's reign and rulership over SAPS and were actively working to undermine him, keeping stuff from him and keeping resources and information against Senzo Mchunu. So this lines up, and there were allegations earlier of this wrestling match, this fight over SAPS between people who wish Cele was still around, or at least were not happy, because remember, Cele was police minister before Mchunu, or at least were happier with Cele than they were now under Mchunu. And there were these allegations of back channels and people still reporting to Cele instead of Mchunu. This kind of sounds like that. Now, I know Matlala has been listening to everything we've been listening to across the country, so he can write a story that fits all of these allegations, but it just so happens that this is lining up with those claims. And Matlala even said in response to a question, and I'm completely bewildered that none of the MPs present followed up on this part. He said that Bheki Cele told him to keep entertaining Brown Mogotsi, which means Senzo Mchunu, the police minister, to get dirt and information on them to potentially give enough evidence of criminality from Mogotsi and Senzo Mchunu, the police minister, to arrest the police minister, to take them out. The fact that no one followed up on that is crazy. But the core of it is Matlala claims that Bheki Cele explicitly told him to continue to talk to Mogotsi and entertain him and do all that stuff and maybe even pay money to get dirt and information on criminality on the police minister to take him out as part of this factional rivalrous. Now, let's go to the extortion part. So Matlala claims that he was just a poor victim constantly being extorted because he won a SAPS tender for healthcare services. People knew that he'd won other tenders in the past. People knew that he had money. And so everyone was just trying to extort him. He literally felt persecuted by the police from all sides. So Matlala speaks of a number of times where his place was raided or firearms from his security company were confiscated or he was arrested, and suddenly people would call him and say, in exchange for money, we'll help you out. So he describes Brown Mogotsi calling him out of nowhere. He says he doesn't even know how Brown Mogotsi got his number. And Brown Mogotsi essentially said, we can help you out and take away your police problems in exchange for, let's just say, blessings and benefits. And that leads to all this money that Matlala paid towards flights for ANC officials to the ANC January 8th birthday or founding day celebration, money towards Senzo Mchunu allegedly, money towards Senzo Mchunu's friends and confidants and allies, all facilitated through Brown Mogotsi. Matlala says that he's got ID numbers because he got sent ID scans, ID copies of the people who he directly bought flights for, because he said the rest of the time he was just giving money into an account. He didn't know how it got spent. But on specific flights to the January 8th celebration a little while ago, he booked those flights himself. And so he's got those specific numbers, but he says Senzo Mchunu was not one of those people. So he doesn't have any evidence of him, like he didn't buy a flight directly for the police minister now on suspension back when the police minister was not on suspension. So that's what he claims. Then he was asked, well, apparently Senzo Mchunu was putting together a fund to fund a run for him to be the successor to Ramaphosa and the future president of the ANC in the country. Were you involved in that? Apparently you were approached. And Matlalas said, well, I was just sending money. So I don't know where it was spent or how it was spent, but it is possible that some money I sent was put aside for a Senzo Mchunu fund campaign for a presidential run. I will remind you that all the evidence points to Brown Mogotsi being a fundraiser and a lobbyist for Ramaphosa's CR17 campaign to defeat Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma way back when, in 2017. So it's all interconnected. And then, incredibly, he got another call, Matlala, from someone representing Cele, and then he ended up having a meeting with Cele and all this, which started the relationship with Cele, and Cele essentially said, well, I can help you solve these problems. I can call, say, head of crime intelligence Dumisani Khumalo. I can call other people. There will be meetings between you and powerful people. And Matlala did have a meeting with General Mkhwanazi also further down the line, although he says that was just to exchange information about Shadrach Sibiya, someone we will get to in a second. I'm telling you, there's a lot to follow. And he says, Matlala, that Cele, according to him, helped him get his confiscated firearms back, helped him stop harassment by the police on him, helped him in all of these different ways. Apparently, Cele, according to Matlala, he believes he did call Dumisani Khumalo to get all of this kind of the harassment taken away. And then Matlala says that Cele made it known to him that Cele felt unappreciated for doing all of that work for him, for being so nice to him, for being kind. And then Matlala paid him off in cash to make him feel appreciated. And this is the core of Matlala saying that he was just basically being extorted from all sides, according to him. He says he was arrested because he stopped taking phone calls from one faction. He said that he made payments and started taking calls and working with a different faction, and suddenly things got better for him. He said that he got arrested for this and accused of that, maybe even the alleged hit on his ex-girlfriend, the alleged assassination attempt, because he stopped cooperating with one side or another. He's painting himself as an absolute victim here. That is his goal, and that is his narrative. But I've only got through 3 of the 5 big things, so let's go back even further. So there's the key relationship between Matlala and Shadrach Sibiya, also on suspension now, National Deputy Police Commissioner. And you'll remember all of that audio getting played out a little while ago of moments of Matlala being arrested and trying to protect himself and spitting out all these names saying he knows Hawks head Godfrey Labia, saying that he knows Shadrach Sibiya, saying that he has connections to this person and that person, basically trying to say, you shouldn't arrest me, you shouldn't be arresting me, you shouldn't be harassing me. I know all these people, I've given them money, I'm one of their guys. And you will also remember that one of the testimonies and one of the recordings out of one of these encounters, confrontations between Matlala and the police, apparently Sibiya told Matlala, can you take care of me? I will take care of you. That is apparently what Matlala said to police that Sibiya said to him, name dropping him all the time. Matlala also apparently said that Shadrach Sibiya was a criminal and that, quote, when money is involved, Shadrach Sibiya drops everything to get that money. Drops everything. He'll just stop in the middle, he'll drop everything. Apparently, money and bribes and payoffs were being done in Sibiya's office or in the ensuite bathroom of his office. Apparently, Shadrach Sibiya, according to Matlala, is just to be bought and to be paid for by the highest bidder to whatever they want. So today in Ad Hoc, Matlala claimed, and this is hella weird, because remember, Matlala is trying to say that he's largely innocent. Innocent of a lot of things. He's just a victim of all of this kind of extortion and exploitation. Matlala claims that he met Shadrach Sibiya by sending a strongly worded email to an email he found online for SAPS. Now, can we just consider that for a second? So Matlala was saying, basically, so he won this SAPS contract, right? And he also, for 360 million to provide healthcare services. He says something insane about KFC, which I'll tell you in a second. But he said that he won this contract, and he also rented out parts of a police college to provide healthcare services or whatever. And it's incredibly weird and sus that he rented that. And some people are saying he rented that before he won the SAPS tender, suggesting that he already knew he'd win that healthcare services SAPS tender. But Matlala today claimed that he actually applied for it for 3 years in advance or for 3 years, so it doesn't line up. Anyway, not important or as important as this. Matlala then said that he secured this facility, and then other doctors who were not working with him or for him, police members, kept using that facility, and Matlala got really upset because they weren't authorized to do that because that was his space now, his facility to use. And then he said that he sent an extremely strongly worded email to some kind of publicly accessible online email in SAPS, threatening legal action if this continued. And somehow that led to him getting a meeting with the Deputy National Police Commissioner, Shadrach Sibiya. That's hella weird, isn't it? And Matlala claims that in that meeting was only Shadrach Sibiya and Matlala and his legal representative. That's hella sus. That's hella fishy. If that is true, then maybe Shadrach Sibiya sniffed out a money-making opportunity for himself in exchange for protection and help of Kat Matlala's interests. But is Matlala telling the truth? Because that sounds extremely unlikely. And the last big thing, before I breathe for just the second time on this episode and let James talk for a while, is the connection to old man Msibi. So Msibi was a very, very prominent taxi boss, one of, I think, the co-founders of Santaco, which is a massive taxi organization, also involved in SA Taxi. Again, go watch Skadonk. James is writing a book on the history of the taxi industry. He'll be able to tell us more. But in earlier rounds of Madlanga and the Ad Hoc committee, people spoke about the old man. And the assumption was the old man was this taxi boss, Msibi, who, according to some belief systems, was the kingpin, not like Christianity or Islam or Judaism, but like according to some people's beliefs of what's going on, was the kingpin of the Big Five drug cartel before he passed on just a little while ago, like less than a few years ago. And the Ad Hoc committee wanted to understand what the relationship was between Matlala and Msibi. And Matlala said, well, I ran a security company, a personal protection services company, and we provided services to Msibi himself around COVID times. So like 2020, 2021, for around 3 years, 2 or 3 years, until Msibi passed away. And Matlala couldn't quite remember exactly when, but he said it was around 2023, 2024. And he was at the funeral of Msibi. And you know who else was there? Becky Cele. I'm going to breathe now. James, over to you. I didn't even get to the KFC bit yet. We're going to get there.
There is actually too much to go through. This feels like the obligatory time when we mentioned shout out to Jan Gerber and Karen Moorn for doing
24
unbelievable documenting of all of this.
Because we couldn't watch the whole day live. So we watched a lot of it live, but for the fill-ins, those live news updates, those text updates are phenomenal.
Yeah. What I find really interesting about this is that obviously there have been unbelievable levels of allegations laid against Kat Matlala.
Yeah. With evidence.
With evidence. But to my ear and to my eye, what he seems to be doing is trying to lessen the blow. Because I'm fairly certain that bribing SAPS officials is illegal, right?
Yeah.
I'm fairly certain that that's the case. So he is now, there was a whole thing about whether it's under oath and what that means, and whether it means an investigation or whatever. But like fundamentally, he's putting it to the public record under the laws of parliament that he bribed multiple police officers. It doesn't matter what the situation was. If you do that, that's a crime, right?
Yeah.
So he is kind of giving a little so they don't take a lot, essentially, which is crazy to think that he's doing that. And that is what he sees as being the best way forward here.
But you can understand that, right? So like at one point in the testimony, he said, why am I paying people off to get police services? So he said, why do I have to pay delivery money for the police to treat me properly? He said that like they were like stymieing charges he wanted to place and lay, and that they were concocting things and arresting him and harassing him and stuff. So from his narrative, like, look, if he has the evidence to pull this off and all of this is true, maybe he's not the most going to jail man ever anymore, because you can argue like in a plea deal of some kind, maybe. I don't think it's going to happen. Nothing of today, and it's going to go on tomorrow and Friday, is about the gun charges and the gun linked to everything.
Or the blue lights. That's the other thing, which is another crime that he's been linked with that he didn't address. And a really important thing to acknowledge as well is that he made very sure not to address certain topics, specifically the tender, the 360 rand tender.
Slightly more than 360 million.
Sorry, 360 million rand tender that Jeff Wicks broke on, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and he kept saying, oh, you know, I don't want to implicate myself. I don't want to like da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. So that is important to acknowledge as well, because I feel like the whole blue light Ekurhuleni EMPD thing. For those that don't know, he has been accused of bribing SAPS officials in Ekurhuleni so he could get blue light privileges, which is extremely illegal. And I imagine that question is coming either tomorrow or the next day. It was quite interesting to see all the parliamentarians like raring to go. They all were like, and they kept being pulled back by Arendse and the chair being like, guys, we're getting ahead of the witness here. We still need to establish this, this, and this. But on top of that, the Brown Mogotsi question is really interesting because Matlala didn't deny that he had engaged with Brown Mogotsi. He tried to show his side of the story of the engagements of that, but and also he seemed to affirm some of the messages that we've seen as well.
Oh, the WhatsApps, yeah.
The WhatsApp messages of like paying for January 8th ANC rallies and stuff like that. So it's interesting that Mogotsi and Matlala haven't denied or have at least confirmed a couple of those messages.
Totally. And Matlala literally said when someone said, like, why were you just going along with this random phone call from Mogotsi saying he works in the minister's office and he'll sort stuff out? Why were you just going along with Becky Cele telling you, no, just do this for me and I'll sort stuff out? And he said, because when you're sick, you don't question the medicine or something like that. He said, you don't question why you, like, who's giving you the medicine. You just go, oh, thank you. I have the medicine now. It's quite interesting because Mogotsi basically tried to sell us he's a police contact agent and informant being told to do all this stuff. And Matlala basically said the same thing. He said he's not a police informant, but he's like, powerful police told me what to do and I had no choice. So I think that's what he's trying. I mean, that's explicitly what he's trying to spin. Is he was like, I was getting hammered from all sides by the police. And there were individuals within the police who said, you do this for me and I'll stop that. I'll make that go away. So he's saying he had no choice. He had to do all of these things. And he said that Becky Cele explicitly told him to continue to, quote, entertain Brown Mogotsi and thereby Senzo Mchunu as part of this massive factional battle.